Hello and welcome to the Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. And we have a Ravelry group called the Flame and Fiber Podcast Ravelry group, where we have a KAL going on and some lovely sweaters being shown and lovely, wonderful people. So please join us there. I'd like to say welcome. Welcome to the new viewers. I've had quite a few new subscribers, and I can tell you that each and every one of you was cheered and announced to Dennis, and he was, oh, nice, every time. I was dancing in my chair. You know, he doesn't get quite as excited, but so what? Doesn't matter. So anyway, welcome. I think it's likely that most of you found me from watching the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast with the lovely Leslie. Thank you for the wonderful shout out, Leslie. Oh my gosh, I cried when I watched your podcast and heard you talk about me. That was so nice. If you're not familiar with Leslie's podcast, Not Quite Enough Yarn, she's a wonderful, down-to-earth, funny, lovely woman in the south of England, and she podcasts once a month. I think she has 5 now. I look forward to them every time, and please don't make them shorter. She was talking about, you know, maybe an hour was too long. An hour's not too long. Perfect. Could be longer. I wouldn't mind. Anyway, she's so funny and wonderful, and the first time I watched her podcast, I wished I lived next door to her, because it would be so wonderful to be able to be friends with her in person. I'm hoping to become friends with her over the internet. But anyway, she's really fun. And her podcast is called Not Quite Enough Yarn, and she's got lots of yarn, and she talks about her stash, and she's got 2 big cupboards full of yarn and stuff, but she is very much like many of us, and when she buys yarn, she somehow, you know, if you don't have a project in mind, you don't buy quite enough. So, but she makes do, and so she's doing a lot of color blocking, and, you know, she makes the sweater, and then the sleeves, you know, are another color, that kind of thing. Anyway, she's wonderful. She knits beautiful things, and she's so much fun to watch. And thank you so much for the wonderful shout out, and welcome to all of you who found me from Leslie's podcast. I found Leslie's podcast from the Mean Girls. Thank you, Mean Girls, for turning me on to Leslie. And hi, guys. Anyway, it was so much fun to get all those new subscribers, and thank you so much. And welcome back to all my lovely viewers who have been here before and been with me for a while. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for the notes and the messages and the comments. I appreciate every single one, and I cannot tell you how good it makes me feel. Well, like I said, I mean, every time I get a subscriber, Dennis hears about it. You know, it's important. Unfortunately, I am not drinking my coffee in any kind of fancy cup today, because I'm having a little trouble with my legs. And so I am trying to make as few trips up and down the steps as possible. So I made my coffee before I went upstairs to take my shower, because of course I have to take a shower so I can fix my hair, because, you know, I can't just do a podcast. You got to get ready. I get ready for you. And so I made my coffee before I went up for my shower and put it in my thermos, and didn't have enough arm space to carry a nice cup to pour it into, so I'm drinking it out of my thermos, which means it'll stay hot maybe for the whole podcast, which would be nice. I have had a cup of tea this morning, but this is my first cup of coffee, and so I guess I'm just going to start talking about my knitting, and everything else will kind of come as it comes. You know how I am. I have, you know, in the past couple of podcast I talked about, you know, kind of lost my mojo, and then last podcast I showed you my Mobius scarf, which was so much fun to knit, and that was that helped a lot. And so I feel like these last 3 weeks since I podcast last, especially the last week, I feel like my mojo's back. I do, and I'm feeling much better. And part of the reason I'm feeling better is, you know, I talked about in the past podcasts about my messy room. This room is messy. But, you know, the dining room project for Mother's Day was a big deal. And that started me kind of on the realization about how much my messy, cluttered house is kind of weighing me down. And, you know, I really am glad that Dennis has a very high tolerance for clutter because, you know, it doesn't bother him. He doesn't nag me or, you know, wonder or, you know, whatever. I'm in charge of the cleaning. He does the cooking and shopping. So I feel like that's fair, especially since he doesn't care if I clean or not. But anyway, when I worked on the dining room table, I realized and got it clean and ate there for Mother's Day, I realized how much my environment was affecting my mood. So, we had company for Memorial Day weekend. And, you know, I always clean before company. In fact, I sometimes wish I had company more often so I could clean my house more often. But normally, you know, it's usually family, which people I love and care about, you know. But you just clean for family. You don't clean for family. So, but we were having good friends for Memorial Day weekend, and we got it in our head to really kind of clean. I mean, Dennis mopped the floors, and our floors haven't been mopped. I don't even want to speculate how long it's been, but I wouldn't want to tell you either because, you know, that'd be it for you. You'd be gone. You wouldn't want to watch this anymore. I mean, but we have hardwood floors, and you can't tell they're dirty. But I knew they were dirty. So just having them cleaned made a big difference. And, you know, I just really cleaned places that don't, you know, straightened up, put away. I mean, we had a little TV that had been sitting in the upstairs hallway for 2 years. It got processed, you know, so we cleaned the house and really made progress when we did it for our company. And I sat around Memorial Day weekend thinking, oh my God, I really like it when my house is clean. So since Memorial Day weekend, which was 2 weeks ago today, I think, we cleaned our bedroom. And my bedroom, you know, was the bedroom equivalent of the dining room at the time. And Dennis cleaned his side, which probably had not been done in a decade, you know, really. We had a dog crate in there that had been in there for a long, long time. So there was dog hair like all around it. Anyway, you don't want to hear the details. But the room got cleaned from top to bottom, Dennis's side and my side. My side had been cleaned more often than his. And it's a place we go, you know, a lot. I wake up in the morning and in a clean room, and it really makes a difference. So anyway, I've been working on my mood by working on my space. And I have also made quite a bit of progress in this room, which I'm not going to show you because it doesn't really look like progress. Because you know how that is when you're in the middle of something, doesn't really necessarily look a lot better, but it is better. And I have to get this room clean this week, by the beginning of next week, because my daughter's coming to visit and all my yarn is on the bed that she sleeps in. Now, technically I don't. I could just get bins and bin up that yarn and clear that room out, but I don't want to. I want to keep going because it's really helping my mood. So between cleaning for the guests and having the guests, and then we've been keeping the granddaughters, the last 2 weeks we've been keeping the granddaughters overnight because, you know, my son and daughter-in-law are taking my granddaughters to Florida, and they're working on their house to put it up for sale. And so we've been taking them Tuesday night and keeping them all day Wednesday. My son's off on Wednesday. And so that's happened the last 2 weeks. So I've had a lot of time in the last 3 weeks where I didn't really have time to knit. And, you know, sometimes you take a little break and it's not a bad thing. Because I was taking a break, not because I was sore and couldn't knit, but rather because I had people in and we were doing things and, you know, so all good reasons. So that helped me too. So anyway, at the end of last week, I'm coming up on like saying, oh, I have to podcast on Monday and I don't have any finished objects. And I mean, the beginning of the year, not only did I have a finished object every podcast, I had a finished sweater. And I didn't have any finished objects, and there weren't any sort of on the horizon that, so I made my squares for the Sister Survivor blanket project. Now, I talked about the Sister Survivor blanket project in an earlier podcast, but I'll link in the show notes, because I will do show notes. I'll link in the show notes to Evelyn's forums on see how much editing I do. This might all be like beep, beep. Anyway, the Thistle Hollow, Evelyn, is a lovely podcast. She's a lovely woman, young woman, and she is doing the Sister Survivor blanket project. She's asking knitters all over the world to send her a 5-inch square blanket square so that she can put it in a blanket to commemorate the bravery of the women who came forward against Dr. Larry Nassar, the guy who's now in prison for the rest of his life, who's I don't even want to discuss. But the woman who kind of, was the first person to speak out and became kind of the leader of the survivors of this horrible man is, and I wrote it down so I won't forget, her name is Rachel Den Hollander, and Evelyn is going to be giving her this blanket. And there were 155 women who came forward to, and girls, to tell their stories about how this man abused them. And so she wanted a square for each of them, and she's putting together this blanket. And she asked for them by the end of June, and of course I'm such a procrastinator that, it's not the end of June. And anyway, I ended up making two. She got a lot of, sort of garter stitch squares and miter squares and that kind of thing. So I thought I would do something with a little bit of a pattern. And I have one of those 365 days of knitting stitches, calendar-y things. And so I just picked a couple days and I just did a little stitch pattern. And of course I didn't pay any attention to what they were, and so I can't tell you what they are. And they have to be 5 inches square. So I couldn't really block them too aggressively because, of course, I didn't know exactly how many stitches, and I probably did 4 extra stitches. If I had done 4 fewer stitches, I could have blocked them more aggressively and had that lace pattern show better, but, I'm not going to swatch to do a 5-inch square. I mean, really. And once I started, I didn't want to start over, so... Anyway, this green is, I put this color in my A Girl's Best Friend shawl by Isabel Kramer, and this is the naturally dyed yarn from the lovely ladies at the Maryland Sheep and Wool who don't really have a store and don't really have a name. And it's dyed with indigo and Osage orange, and it's a wonderful color. Now, this is a funny color because when I knit with it, the blue comes off in my hand from the indigo, but when I soak it, the water is perfectly clear. So I think it's okay to put in the blanket. And then this one is the beautiful color Lichen from Franco Fee Knits. But Devin has changed the name of her company. She's not Franco Fee Knits anymore. She's now like Cardinal Yarn Fiber Company, something like that. So she's changed the name, but you can still probably get this color because it's such a lovely color. I did my Karina sweater out of this. So anyway, these are my 2 finished objects, and you can find more information about this Sister Survivor blanket project because I know Evelyn needs more squares, and I did these 2 squares, and it was fun to do a pattern, and it took me, a short evening to do the 2 squares, and it was really fun. So I will be weaving in my ends tonight, and I will be sending you these squares tomorrow. So you will have them in plenty of time for the blanket. And that's it. That's my finished objects, my 2 blanket squares. But when I wasn't entertaining my granddaughters and I wasn't entertaining our friends and cleaning my house, which I did a lot, I mean, way more. No wonder some people don't have time to knit if they actually keep their house clean. It takes time. So I'm hoping it won't take quite so much time once I get everything clean. But, you get one thing clean and the next thing's dirty. And it's not like I cleaned out my drawers or anything, or my closet. So I still have plenty of projects if I want to really get down to it, but we took bags and bags of giveaway clothes. I mean, just crazy. Okay, so the big thing that has been giving me my mojo back this last week is I'm doing a test knit for Piper'Nell, Chanel Wu, who is a designer. She's a podcaster. Her podcast is Piper'Nell. And she was commissioned by the Crafty Toads to design a boho shawl, and she used their yarn. And I do not have a good picture of that. The pattern I have didn't have a picture. She did send one in an email, and I didn't print it out. So I don't have a good picture of her, of Chanel's, but you can see it on the Crafty Toad podcast because Chanel gave it to them. Now, Chanel uses the they, the, them pronouns, you know, instead of a gendered pronoun, but I'm so sorry, Chanel, if I forget that, because it's hard for me. English is the worst. There's no neutral pronoun that people can use when they want to do that. So they use they instead of she or he. But that doesn't come natural to me, so please forgive me if I get that wrong. I'll try to just say Chanel, and that'll be easier. But meanwhile, so this is called the roulette. The roulotte shawl, which says it means caravan in French. Roulotte. Because with the boho theme, I guess I'm assuming caravan is like, you know, the gypsies. And you know those toads, they consider themselves gypsies. So anyway, here it is. I'm so sad because I am two rows away from starting the bind off. The bind off is it's got I-cord all the way around it, and the bind off is going to be I-cord as well. But I hit a question and I'm waiting for an answer, so I couldn't finish it. If I had finished it, it would be easier to show you because it wouldn't be on the needle anymore, but I wouldn't have had time to block it or anything. But this is such an interesting construction, but it has all kinds of things going on. To start, I'll talk a little bit about the sections. It starts with the garter section, and then you move into a mosaic section. And the mosaic section actually, oh, you can see it really well on the camera, has two different patterns in the mosaic section. And then you go into a lace section, which is really a simple lace section, which doesn't, you know, so I don't have, you know, I do have to wonder why I had to tear it back and start over, but it's quite simple. It's easy to read as you're doing it to know whether or not you're on track. So once you get the first couple rows set, then you're good. And then it goes into another mosaic section, and then it has the edge section, which is a little bit of lace and flares it out, and then you end up with a... But the way this starts is it starts up in this corner of the garter, and this first color I have is Lydia. I tried to find 4 Toad Hollow colors to make this in, because I thought that would be fun, and I have lots of their yarn. But I could not find the first color that I wanted. So I went with this. This is Lydia yarn in the Bliss base, which is 80-10-10 superwash merino and cashmere. And I got this as when I was in the yarn side of the Fiberista Yarn Club, which is now defunct because the guys turned out to be a little bit crooked. But anyway, so this color was especially for that yarn club, and it's called Drinks with the FC Boys. But it's a really pretty color. My plastic bags, you know, everybody's getting these cool, you know, yarn sacks. I use sandwich bags. So anyway, it's a very nice kind of neutrally color with pinks and blues and purples, which was the color theme I was going for. So So that's my first color, and you start here up in this corner, and you're doing just this little bit of piece, and you know, you're growing it, and it grows, and so you have this triangle, just the first color. And then from the triangle, then you add your contrast color, and my contrast color is this, and I think it's called, this is Toad Hollow. They've changed the name. It used to be the Drusilla base, but I think they call it Sock Toad now. It's a 80-20 merino nylon. I love their base. It's so soft. It's gorgeous. This color was a club color. I've got lots of their clubs. I love their dyeing, and this is called Hanging the Stars, and this was from their first club, which was, you know, traveling through literature, and that was the Mary Poppins reference. But it's my contrast color. It's mostly navy blue, but it's got a little bit of kind of a brownish rust in it. I don't know if you can see that there. That was indicated the stars. So you add that, and you do that mosaic, and you get about halfway through doing the mosaic, and then you turn around and you pick up all these stitches, and it turns it into a crescent. It's the coolest construction. I'm telling you, it was so much fun. Of course, I don't know about myself sometimes, you know. So when I volunteered to do this test knit, I emailed Chanel and said, hey, you know, I'd love to do this test knit, but I got to warn you, you know, I QC spec documents as a IT manager in my job, and, you know, this kind of thing. So, you know, you'll be hearing from me, maybe. I hope you don't mind. She's like, oh, no, I don't mind. So the pattern came out the Friday before Memorial Day weekend. And there are I think there are 5 people who are doing this test knit. And that would be a perfect time for me under normal circumstances, except I had my company coming. And so I was cleaning on Friday, so I didn't even get a chance to look at it. And, you know, and then they came Saturday and stayed till Monday, and then granddaughters came on Tuesday and stayed till Wednesday. And of course, when I'm with them, I'm exhausted. So I kind of got a pretty late start test knitting this. So by the time I started really getting going, I mean, I cast it on Monday night after my guests left, but I really didn't get much going until Thursday. By that time, the other test knitters had done the first couple sections and given Chanel feedback on those, and so I'm just zipping along. There's a new version. I'm just, you know, I'm just knitting. When I get to the turn where I pick up the stitches, I apparently have the memory of a goldfish. So I pick up the stitches, and I'm going along, and they're talking about picking up 120 stitches, and I go back and I look, you know, and I count how many garter ridges I have of the first color, and I'm like, wait a minute, I only have 77 garter ridges. Now, how, you know, you guys got, and so I send this, and it's a group email, right? I send this, so I don't know how this happened, but I only had 77, picked up 77 stitches. You got 120 stitches. You know, what did I do wrong? I'm sending this to 6 people, 7, counting the crafty toads. So I was wrong. We picked up stitches in the mosaic part too. We picked up 120 stitches. I had exactly the right number of stitches. You know, it's like, Barb, really? I mean, you're a big help. So I send this blast email saying, I did something wrong because I only have 77. So then I have to go, never mind. I see what I did. You know, anyway, never mind. And I'm like, oh. She knows it's going to be like, oh yeah, she's a big help. Yeah. And coming in late. So until I hit something last night that I wasn't sure about, and I emailed her, emailed Chanel, I didn't say anything else. I'm like, I do need to send her a picture, an updated picture of where I am, and some feedback on the formatting and things like that, which I will give her but it's like, oh yeah, I'll give you all this feedback. You're going to get all this, you know, because I'm a professional. And I don't know any of the other test knitters, and they probably all think I'm a dip. Anyway, but I have had so much fun knitting this shawl. So I have color number 1. The contrast color is the Hanging the Stars, and that's what you do the mosaic with. And then you have a section, like a garter section, to delineate between that. And this is my color 3. My color 3 is a Crafty Toad color. Oh, this was, lately they've been doing the Year in the Museum. This was, what month was this? 5. So this was May. The Rose Window. Doesn't that knit up gorgeously? Oh. So my number 2 main color was the Rose Window, which I just really, really like. So I've got a purple and blue and pink theme going here, right? You can see that. And when I picked my colors, I did not realize that the 3rd main color is only used in a mosaic pattern with the blue. And it actually turned out okay, but after I got started and realized I had picked a color that was not big contrast, and the color I picked for my 3rd main color is called Forsythia, which was the April color from Year in the Museum. So unfortunately, these colors are not currently available. This is it. It's a beautiful purple with some teal, green, kind of tealy, greeny specks in it. It's really pretty. And it's Year in the Museum. And that's my 3rd main color, and that is the bottom mosaic. So the shawl goes like this. This is the bottom. And the mosaic is really fun. I really enjoy, you know, mosaic. Obviously, I have not woven in my ends yet. And then at the very bottom, you finish it out using the contrast color. And do, there's like a lace, it's just a few rows. It's only 5 rows, but it's enough to flare out the bottom and give it, you know, a little lacy pattern, flare out the bottom, and then you do a I-cord bind off. My problem is, I mean, but you know, that flary part, up until now, you've had a reasonable number of, you know, stitches. I think going through by the time you get to the end of the mosaic, you have 400 and some stitches. But that last section, you add a bajillion stitches. So that by the time you're doing the I-cord bind off, and I don't want to turn you off with this information, but you have over 800 stitches. So I have 2 rows that I have to do yet with 800 stitches. And then I have to do an I-cord bind off for 800 stitches. Well, I can tell you I am not confident that I have enough yarn. Now, I did not check my gauge. I don't do gauge swatches for shawls, which maybe I should have because it was a test knit, but I didn't. And I went up my typical, probably 3 sizes of needle, because I'm doing this on a 7. Oh no, and the suggested size is 5. So I only went up 2 sizes. So anyway, now according to Chanel, the contrast color is 360 yards is used in the contrast color, whereas the main color 1 uses 180, the main color 2 and 3 each use 260 yards. So you're not using all of your yarn except for that contrast color, which in my case is the navy blue color. But I'm weighing my ball, and so I have two rows of knitting to do, and I have 20 grams left at this point. So I'm going to knit those 2 rows and see how much yarn I have, because a 3-stitch I-cord bind off has to be very similar in yarn usage to 3 rows of knitting, I would assume. That's my assumption. So if I use more than half of the 20 grams I have left to do the last 2 rows, I don't think I'll have enough for the I-cord bind off. So I'm thinking that I will maybe stripe color 2, main color 3, and what I have left of the navy, because this I-cord is striped. This is, you know, because as you're doing the mosaic, you're doing an I-cord along, and so I was thinking that it wouldn't be such a stretch to just do a striped I-cord binding all the way around. Or if I don't think I even have enough for that, then I might do the whole thing in color 3. So anyway, but I have to say, this was so much fun to knit. And, you know, I watch TV, there, you know, mosaic. I've done mosaic before. I did a mosaic shawl that I really liked. And, I mean, I liked knitting it, but the colors looked great, you know, high contrast, like a bright teal blue with a neon green, and it looked gorgeous. And in my shawl stand, and I knew I was never going to wear that shawl after I finished it. I don't know. And it was worsted weight, so it was nice and warm. I guess I must have worn it over to my mother-in-law's, because I'm like, I got to do something with this shawl. And she loved it, and I gave it to her on the spot. She keeps it on her chair, and she wears it in her house to keep her warm. And she's getting way more use out of it than I did. But anyway, so this is not the first time I've done mosaic. And mosaic is fun. This is a very simple pattern here. This had a little bit more going on, but you can see. And it's funny because I can see it way better than I can see it when I look at it. Interesting. So anyway, I highly, highly recommend this pattern. It's coming out at the end of the month. Chanel said that, you know, as a thank you for doing the test knit, we will get a Piper nail pattern of our choice. And I choose, plus we'll get the finished shawl pattern for ourselves, but I'm going to choose that same pattern, and I'm going to have a giveaway to give one of you guys this pattern, because this pattern is so much fun. I'm so tickled with it. I think the toads are going to be really happy, and I love my colors, and I wish the color 1 could have been a toad color 2, and then it would be all Toad Hollow yarns. But I'm so glad to be using my Toad Hollow yarn, because it feels so lovely, and I hate to, well, and I've lost my sock mojo, so I'm not knitting socks, although I'm thinking about knitting a sock, and I'll get to that a little later. So anyway, so I was knitting, having a ball knitting this in the last week. Just really enjoying it, looking forward to knitting, which made me happy, I can tell you. Really made me happy. So, but then last night, I have a question out to Chanel that, and I didn't want to continue because I'm talking about an 800 stitch row. I do not want to knit it wrong and then re-knit it. So I had to stop with it, and I would have loved to have this finished. But anyway, it's going to be blocked and gorgeous on the next podcast. I promise. I'll weave in the ends. I'll block it. It'll be wonderful. But I had to stop knitting on it because I had an outstanding question. So I picked up my sweater that I had been knitting and had kind of lost my momentum on, and this is the Summer Dreams sweater by Marcella Chang, and this is what I'm knitting instead of the Tegna. And So where I was when last we met, I had finished the body up to the arms, because this is a yoke sweater knit from the bottom. So I had the body done up to the arms, and I had started on the arms, because I got, you know, I kind of stopped when I hit the body. And I didn't have much mojo, so starting the sleeves felt like a chore, which I wasn't up for. So that didn't get done for a while. But then I thought, that's ridiculous. I knit them 2 at a time, and so they were halfway done when last we gathered. And so prior to starting the shawl, I finished the sleeves. So the sleeves were done, and so last night I picked this back up and read the instructions. Now this is the first time I've done a yoke sweater where you knit the bottom, and then you knit the sleeves, and then you put them all together. And it's funny, sometimes, maybe this happens to you too, I can, you know, maybe I'm tired or whatever, I can read directions and try to picture it, and I can't picture it in my mind, and, you know, it's just like, oh, I can't, you know. And that's how I was when I, you know, finished the sleeves, and I looked at the directions, you know, the next step of putting it all together, and I'm like, oh, you know. So I put it aside. And last night when I picked it up, I read the directions. I said, oh, sure. And I just did it. What is that? That sometimes, you know, maybe it just needs to perk in there for a while. I don't know. I mean, I used to have like a 20-minute rule at work. I worked in the same place for a long time. And we had many, many projects. We did surveys, and so, you know, many projects. So, and I, you know, I was one of the old guys. And so every once in a while, somebody would walk in my office and say, Barb, you remember that project 7 years ago? We did, blah, 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 you know, whatever. And I'd sit there and I'd say, well, come back in 20 minutes. Because it would take me 20 minutes. My filing system is not, you know, nanoseconds. But in 20 minutes, I would have brought up all the information that I could remember. And usually it was quite a bit. That was, you know, I was younger. But it took me about 20 minutes before I could, you know, process it and, you know, and get the information back from my filing system, which is apparently, you know, analog. And maybe that's the same thing with the instructions, you know. It's just like it needed to be in there processing for a while, so that last night when I picked it up, I got, okay, let me just, you know, and I just did it. So here I am talking about this sweater, and you're not looking at it because I haven't lifted it up. Well, you know, so here is where I am. So I've done the body, and I actually put the sleeves on, and I got up to the lace. Well, confession time. I got past the lace, not past the lace, but I was halfway in the lace, and I did something, and I don't know what the heck it was. I had to take it all back. I had to take it all back away from the lace. But while I did that, I tried it on, because I'm sitting there knitting on this and the lace, and I'm thinking, this is so huge. And you know, this is my problem. You know, this is the problem that I've been having lately when I make my sweaters. I have been making them a little bit too big or a lot too big. I thought, here I go again, you know, and I'm thinking, do I really want to keep going if this sweater is going to be so huge? And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, it is so huge. So I tried it on, and I'm not sure if I'm happy or sad to report it fits great. So I am this big, but I really like the way it fit. Now, I don't know, you know, I mean, that's down to here, you know, so who knows how it's going to be going up the yoke, but where it is now, it seems to fit me really well. So I'm really happy about that, because I did not want to carry it back, you know. So this gorgeous yarn is Yakagani Yarns. Yakagani Yarns. And the Somerset Silk, which is the single ply. And the color is called Feeling Coy. And I am enjoying knitting with this yarn a lot. And I'm looking forward to the sweater now that I think it's going to fit me But isn't this beautiful? So I alternated skeins in the body. I did not alternate skeins in the sleeves, and I'm not going to alternate skeins while I'm doing the lace part of the yoke. And if I don't do the lace part, I probably won't do the rest of it either. But so far, it's turning out. I am so happy with it. I had so much fun to knit. This yarn is so gorgeous. So I was happy to get that. And so, you know, and if I hear from Chanel, I'll work on the shawl. But if I don't, I will happily, very happily, work on the lace of my sweater. And I'm expecting to have this done for my next podcast as well. But I don't know why I'm saying that, because who knows? I don't want to make promises. So, whip number 2. Whip number 3, while I was waiting for the pattern from Chanel, when I was resting from my cleaning, before my company came, and while I was still not being able to figure out putting those sleeves on, I did more work on my daughter's sweater. And the sweater I'm knitting for my daughter is called Light Roast Cardigan by Kirsten Hipsky. Light Roast Cardigan by Kirsten Hipsky. And it's a little shorty sweater. My daughter wears those. She wears cute little dresses. And so this is a cardigan, and it's knit from the bottom up. And I'm having trouble. But anyway, it's got this lace on the bottom. This lacy part. And so I have just started working on one of the fronts. I was going to say that's where I was last time, and it might actually be where I was last time. That's actually the row where the front started, where it moved away from the rest of the sweater. But anyway, so that's how much I've done. But this is a cute going to be a cute cardigan, and my daughter's coming next week, and so I will, you know, check the size to make sure that it's still working for her. I probably won't get much more done before she comes, but I am going to visit her when I go to Nashville. She lives in Mississippi, the northeast corner of Mississippi. And so when I go to Nashville, I will be renting a car and going down and seeing her. So, I mean, it'll only be a couple weeks since I've seen her, but I've only been to Mississippi to visit her there once, and she's been there for 3 years, so it's about time I went. So the yarn on this, I did find the card. Here it is. Liberty Ridge Farm and Gardens, Verona, New York. And this yarn is called Flare. It's 85% Polworth and 25% Tussis silk. 728 yards in a skein, and I have 2 skeins of that. And I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool. I'm pretty sure. It might have been Rhinebeck, but I think it was Maryland Sheep and Wool. So, those are my works in progress. And I am very glad to have my Knitting Mojo back, I can tell you. That is a drag, as I'm sure many of you realize. So I forgot to show you one thing last time I podcast, and since then I've gotten my swap packages. In our podcast, in our group, we did a swap this spring, And I said, if we get an even number of people who want to swap, I'm going to swap with 2 people. And we did get an even number. We had an odd number of people who wanted to swap domestically within the United States and an odd number of people who were willing to swap internationally or were going to swap internationally. So I assigned myself the odd people in each of those groups. So I made 2 swap packages and I received 2 swap packages. And so I will be showing you those packages. But I also received some really lovely gifts. And this is a gift that I should have showed you last time because I got it quite a while ago. The lovely Robin, who is running it my way, sent me a package of fiber. Gorgeous colors of fiber. She had gotten it as a gift and she doesn't spin. And she sent it to me. Wasn't that sweet? And it's from Switzerland, and I don't read German, so I'm not sure exactly of what the content is. And I need to look it up because this is a great color. It's not that soft, and I'm not sure. I think it may not be wool. I don't think this is wool, so I'm not sure what it is, but I love the color. And this is Garn and the light is making it hard. But this is another green, something textile manufacturers. So anyway, there's more. And then this is Laken, Gefarbte Laken. And bright green, and this looks like locks, but it doesn't feel like wool. It's very interesting stuff. And I got those in other colors. Anyway, this is going to be really fun to play with and to see what happens with. And I'm definitely going to be looking it up because I'm really, it's fascinating to me. And the colors are just lovely. So thank you so much. And her dog stepped on the bag, and so I got a dog print. So thank you, Robin. It was so sweet of you to think of me when you got this and couldn't use it. And I am not sure what I'm going to do with. Oh, and did you see the colors in there? So that's going to be fun. See how that spins up. But the colors are very interesting, and I'm going to do some research, which I have not done. My spinning, I'm getting ready to spin. My spinning mojo's coming back too, but I need to, well, and I got to finish my room this week, so then I'll be able to spin because I'll be able to spin in here because I won't have stuff all over the floor. So that will work great. The other lovely gift I got was from lovely Linda, who's a member of our group, Maisie, and she gave me a subscription to Helen Stewart's Shawl Society 3. I should have printed off the first shawl because it's out now. And I hadn't, this is the year of the sweater, and so I had decided not to sign up for that because I had signed up for the last 2. And I can tell you that, as the day was coming closer, I was feeling like, a little left out because I love a surprise at the beginning of the month or whenever, I love that surprise, which is why I like to doing swaps and why I buy the Crafty Toads subscriptions and things like that, because I love a surprise. So I was feeling a little sad that I hadn't signed up, and then I got it as a gift, and that was such a sweet thing to do. Thank you so much, Linda. You're the best. Thank you for organizing the swap. And I made out better as well or better than anybody on this swap, so you're welcome because look what we got. So I swapped with Susan. Oh my gosh, and Susan, I'm not remembering. Sophie Chihuahua on Ravelry. And Susan, I actually know Susan. She and I went to the Allentown, spent some time at the Allentown Fiber Festival together. She lives about an hour from me. And so that was fun. That was completely by accident. I did everything using, you know, actually I wrote everybody's name in a, you know, there weren't so many people. That's how I did it. I didn't use random numbers. And so she was my swap partner for my first swap. So I will show you what she gave me. And it is in a... So the first thing I got was a message on Ravelry that I was being sent a pattern. So this is the pattern that she sent me. For the love of a Daughter by Crafty Mama Designs, Dawn Morton. And it's a pretty shawl, which she thought might go well. She saw it on another podcast and thought I would like it, and thought it would go well with the yarn that she gave me. With both of my partners, we had, you know, so the point of the swap was to, you know, sort of, sometimes in swaps you feel bad because you didn't send enough or you sent too much, or, you know, so we did a little talking and we decided, you know, for the yarn, we were going to exchange 2 skeins of yarn and some minis, and then other things, you know, things. We like things, you know, knitting things. Well, talk a lot and I cough. So I was really struck when I opened the package from Susan, how I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage when I'm doing a swap with someone who knows about my podcast, because I talk about myself a lot, which is why I'm coughing. You know, I can't stop talking. I'm just talking about me. It's all about me. And I don't know you as well as you know me, because I talk about myself a lot. So when I opened this package, it was so perfect in every way, in several aspects of what's going on in my life, that it kind of made me cry. So I got this beautiful card that she created. I guess there's a way to make your own cards. Anyway, isn't that beautiful? But she sent me a bag. Okay. I don't know how much of that I have to cut out. Probably a lot. I couldn't stop coughing. So I actually took medication. Well, cough syrup. Not medication. But anyway, so is that not perfect? Sitting and then standing is a little furrier than Pearl is, but oh my gosh, I love German Shepherds, and so my Pearly girl. Maybe I'll put a cute picture of my Pearly girl up here for people to see. So of course, you know, my Pearl, we love German Shepherds. Since I've been with Dennis, we've only had German Shepherds, and they're lovely. So, Ancient Arts Fiber, Ancient Arts Yarn, Ancient Arts Yarn does a dog breed colors, and she gave me a German Shepherd. How fun is that? 80/20. Oh, good. Fingering sock. So I may be making myself some Pearl socks once I get my sock mojo back. Oh, I wonder if Dennis won't wear them. I'm not wasting them on Dennis. I made him socks. The second pair of socks I made too big for me, and they fit him. And he wears them to bed in the cold. He calls them his sleeping socks. He wears them whenever his feet is cold. He loves them. He wouldn't wear them anywhere else. He won't wear them in his shoes. Anyway, so she gave me that. Isn't that sweet? And she sent a ball and some treats for Pearl. I have to admit the treats are still here, but the ball went out almost immediately. So we'll see if she's good enough to deserve those treats. So Pearl got a sweet gift and the German Shepherd things, and she gave me some puppy snips, which are lovely. The other theme was Egypt. So she gave me this wonderful sarcophagus tin That is so much fun. I am going to turn that into a Notions tin. I love that. Isn't that wonderful? Egypt. And so the second thing, my second yarn was What the Yarn. What the Flock yarn in the Crown Jewels of Egypt color. Isn't that beautiful? I love these colors. I am so in love with this yarn. That was so yummy. I don't know, there's something about this chartreuse that I really like too. Anyway, this is beautiful yarn, and this is 80/20 fingering. So thank you, Susan. So those were the yarns. And then she gave me minis. And the minis are Brew City Yarns Neverland Mini Skeins. And these will be great in my blanket. And lovely lavender. And in continuing with the Egypt theme, here's a sarcophagus progress keeper. Or this would also be a really lovely project bag zipper pull. And then Egyptian themed stitch markers. There's a pyramid and some other symbols. Anyway, so lovely. A beautiful shawl pin. And some tea. Oh, and a stitch counter. And there was a little paw print stitch marker too. And tea. And look at that. That's a pin too. I'm going to put that on my project bag. Look at that cute little pink sweater. So fun, fun, fun little things. And I loved getting it. So much fun. But, you know, it was so, like, spot on. And I love the color. But the name, you know. Crown Jewels of Egypt. And Puppy. I should have called this Pearl. So, thank you so much, Susan. I loved, 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 loved my package. And I really, really appreciate it. And I got that, you know, while I was a little bit in the doldrums about knitting. So that was super fun. Super, super fun. My second package was from Adrienne, who is the Reluctant Sister on Instagram and Ravelry. And she has she's the Reluctant Knitter, the Reluctant Knitter on Instagram and Ravelry. And she has a podcast, the Reluctant Sisters podcast. And she did that podcast with her sisters, or does that podcast with her sisters. And I think in the early days they got together and did it together, but apparently they're a little more reluctant. And now they kind of each do it when they feel like doing it. And the last couple have been Adrienne and Sarah, who is Sarah Gautreaux on Instagram and Ravelry, is one of the other sisters. And I don't know the third one. I have to go back to the very early podcasts because I met Sarah at Rhinebeck last year. And so that's how I got turned on to their podcast. But you would think it would be easier for me to make a package for Adrienne because she's a podcaster. But she seems to do a lot of gift knitting. And I think when you're doing gift knitting, it doesn't necessarily reflect your own personal tastes and things like that. You often do things reflected by the person you're giving the thing to. So I don't get a particularly good sense of her own personal colors. Oh, shoot. I just dropped a mini. I'm sorry. But I do know that she drinks coffee and not tea. So that helped me. So I didn't put any tea in her bag. In her package, I gave her coffee. So anyway, she gave me this. And this is a pretty cheap project bag. It is so cute. It is pretty. And it's nice and light, and you know, this is the kind of bag you can throw your thing inside your other bag, and you don't have, it's not bulky. So I like it, and I, so anyway, thank you. That was fun. I got a water bottle, which I need, and it says crafting is my cardio, which is totally true, but you can't see that very well because it's see-through-y. And so, and it's got a little hook on my backpack when I'm hiking. Not, but I'll have plenty of use for it, believe me. So thank you for that. And she gave me some tea, which she said she went to a tea shop and they said, oh, she's probably never tried this, and they were right. Windsor Castle. So I have no idea. It's a black tea, and and you should brew it to color, not to time. Amber, medium to dark amber. So that's interesting. And she wasn't sure if I could, so she gave me a tea infuser to go with it in case we don't do loose tea at our house. But Dennis is a tea snob, so we do loose tea at our house. No problems. But this was nice to have. Thank you so much. And, oh, the yarn. The yarn. Look at this color. Oh my gosh, so this is very flamingo-y, and it's called Monarch. Oh, I guess it's butterfly-y too. Isn't this beautiful? I was so tickled with this color. Oh, it's got a little bit of pink in there. And it's just so bright and lovely. I can just imagine this as part of a really, really nice shawl. And this is Skinny Singles, so it's 366 meters of merino wool. Gentle hand wash. Merino wool. It doesn't say it's superwash. Interesting. So anyway, isn't that a beautiful color? I love it. Love the color. And then the second big skein was this beautiful blue, you know, sort of a gradient-y, whatever, and Highland Handmaids is on the tag, and I thought, oh, I wonder if she was on the yarn side of Highland Handmaids yarn club when I did a yarn Highland Handmaids fiber club. So I did the fiber side. I did both the natural fibers and the dyed fibers 1 year. So so I didn't recognize the colorway, but I thought, oh, so she's in the yarn, you know, she was in the yarn side, because it says it's a club color. Sarah, Adrian's sister, spun this. This is hand spun. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know that until I read the card. It's hand spun. It's VFL. Superwash BFL, and it's hand spun. It is so beautiful. What a great job. I hope I can get this good when I get back to spinning, because it is so lovely. I had no idea. I had no idea. So she chain plied this so that she could keep the color of the yarn. And I just saw Mina Phillip on Instagram is knitting a pair of socks out of hand spun that her friend Sarah sent her, and I'm thinking, ooh, I got gorgeous yarn from Sarah I got it from Adrian, and thank you so much, Adrian. Don't want to, but I've never knit socks with hand spun because, of course, I can't spin sock yarn, and I'll have to see how much yarn is here, but I'm not. This is why I'm thinking I might get my sock mojo back, because I want to knit hand spun socks, and this is so beautiful, and I'm so excited about it. So thank you, Adrian, for sending me this gorgeous yarn, and thank you, Sarah, for your talent. So I'm hoping, I'm thinking it might be a sport weight. Might be a sport weight, but socks. I'm thinking I might want to make socks out of that, although it does seem a shame. Nah, I love my socks. And Sarah also spun this cloud, which apparently was spun from a rabbit in the family. And isn't that, oh my gosh, it feels like a dream. So this, I don't know, I think it's going to be like the brim of a hat, something like that, because you want it next to your skin, and there's not very much here. Isn't that beautiful? That was so sweet. So sweet. And Sarah did that too. And a bunch of minis, one of which I'm sorry I just dropped on the floor. But these are fun colors, and they're all marked. Or most of them are marked. And she also sent some other little tchotchkes. Isn't that cute? Llama pin? I do have some pins. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my pins. I don't know if I'm going to get a bag. And some stitch markers. These are from Katrinkles. And these are lobsters. She's in Connecticut, so she gave me a little bit of a Connecticut theme. So lobsters, those are lovely. And a Connecticut needle gauge. Thank you. And I knit it, you get it tags to put on gifts that give them washing instructions, and so you can you know. And I should be doing that. I'm bad about that. So thank you. I can use these. And these are mini adhesive frames, are sized to fit Instax photos. She said, my sister gave me this. It's got llamas. I have no idea what to do with it, but I thought you'd like it. And I do like it. But I don't know what Instax photos are. I think they're probably a special little camera or something like that. But I didn't open it yet. But my guess is I put a little picture under that and I'll stick to something. So anyway. So that was my package from Adrian. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I think I want to, and I don't have to finish the socks I've started, right? People have more than one sock on the go. I could make socks out of this, even though I didn't finish the other socks. And I'm wondering if I don't love the yarn I don't love the yarn that my other socks are being made out of. It was a yarn box yarn that I didn't pick the color. It's kind of like, you know, you're reading a book, you don't like the book. You don't have to finish it. Maybe I don't have to finish that. Maybe I just stop knitting those socks and move on to socks that I might want to knit. So, ladies, I had so much fun. I hope everybody had as much fun as I did with that participated in our swap. Thank you so much. I will confess that I have bought some yarn, but I am going to save that yarn for the next podcast because this is enough already. Because I got so many beautiful things and from such lovely people. Thank you so much. And I am feeling like I've bought too much, spent too much money lately on my, and you'll see why next week. Or next podcast. But so I am going to be trying to not spend quite as much money. And you know, I say that, and I say that every podcast. I know you're tired of hearing it, but and then I'm looking on Instagram. Maybe I need to get off Instagram. Looking on Instagram and going to you know, pages where they sell things and looking. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need this. I don't need that. So I didn't buy those things, but, you know, it's like back in the olden days, quite a while ago now, I was a Weight Watchers leader. And I had people come in and say, oh, I was at a party this week, and I didn't eat this, and I didn't eat the chips, and I didn't eat the this, and I didn't eat the that, and I didn't eat the that, and I didn't eat the that, and I didn't eat the that. And I'd be like, great, those are all really hard to resist, but what did you eat? Well, I ate this and I ate that. You know, so that's what I feel like. You know, like there's so many things out there. I could be not buying this and not buying that and not buying this for like every minute of the day and still have plenty of things that I did buy. I resisted with that. Yeah, well. In the end, my budget is blown. And so anyway, so my next big knitting event will be SSK. I'm getting excited about that, and I'll be able to see my daughter. So a couple of these things I need to finish so I can put them in the 7 knit along for SSK, and all I have to do is figure out how to relate them to the number 7, and they're very cheater friendly, so you can just really wing it. So luckily my shawl is being knit on a size 7, so I'm good there. I can use the size 7. They're kind of 7 different techniques, so I'm good there. And my Summer Dreams sweater is my 7th. When I finish it, will be the 7th sweater I knit this year and finished. 7th sweater I finished. And if by some miracle I end up finishing my daughter's sweater, I cast that on May 7th. I specifically cast it on May 7th, so it could be the 7th. So I have lots of ways, and if I finish that charity hat I'm working on, it's the 7th charity hat that I was knitting. So I have lots of 7s, and so I just need to finish up some stuff and get them in for my door prize tickets at SSK. But I think I'm gonna let you go. I hope you get your mojo back if your mojo hasn't been around. I have a lot of sympathy for that. Sometimes you just aren't feeling it, and I know that, and it's not a typical way for me to be. I'm an extrovert, and I'm usually, not usually kind of blah and blue. So it's not a state I enjoy being in. So I'm feeling very happy that I'm feeling better, and I hope you are all feeling well too. Anyway, I hope you have lots and lots of time to do the crafting that brings you joy, and I will see you soon. Bye.